Hi, I'm Andrew Wasson. Thanks for joining me for my weekly guitar blog. It's May 29th, 2016, and this week we're going to be doing a lesson on two-string wide lateral guitar arpeggio patterns. This week's question here was sent in from Claude. He's out in Montreal, Québec, and he wrote in with this email. There are videos on YouTube talking about arpeggios played on two strings laterally on the neck as wide patterns, but their use is either never or poorly explained. I don't understand how to use them. Can you take a couple of these wide lateral arpeggios and demonstrate the easiest ways to get going on applying them? From Claude in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Hey, thanks for writing in, Claude. I guess, we should start by saying arpeggios, as, our guitar material goes, as guitar players, we're learning them generally very vertically, in position as box shapes on the neck. And while this can offer us a few applications musically, it's not until we begin studying arpeggios in a much more along the neck manner that they'll really begin to help make some very cool sounding phrases for us. So in this lesson, I want to look at learning how to play two-string along the neck arpeggios, and then we're going to expand upon them and also apply them in a musical idea. So let's zoom in on the neck and get started. Well, in getting started here, I want to have a look at two important shapes played up on the higher part of the neck at first and second guitar strings. For the examples, we're going to be using major triads, but of course you could easily switch them into minor tonality at any time by just simply lowering the third chord tone. I'll give you a quick demonstration of that as we're going along. So in the first example I have, it's going to be a G major triad. It's played up at seventh position. It's a really easy shape. The triad begins at the second string on the 8th fret G. And we're just going to go like this, G, B, D. And then we'll do a pull off and come back around to the B and the G once again. Now in the same area, I'm going to set up a C major triad. However, this triad here is going to be inverted with the fifth chord tone in the bass. So I'm going to have the G, then the C, then the E, which is the major third. And that creates the C major. So we've got a G major triad, two string, and we've got the two string C major. Now I was mentioning earlier, you can take these and create minor out of them very easily. The third chord tone, the G to the B, that's the major third, but if I drop the B to B flat, now I've got the minor third. So major, and then minor. And the same thing can be done with the C. The E tone is the third. So if instead of doing E natural, if I drop that E down to an E flat, now I've got a C minor arpeggio. So there's minor and here's major. Simple as that. So it's very easy to convert them from minor to major. All you're doing is messing around with the third chord tone. So let's move on next. I have a couple of other triads I want to go over with you. They're going to be relocating things over to the third and second strings though. So let's work out the new shapes between these strings. First we're going to play the G major chord, the G major triad idea. Its tones will remain in the same order. We're going to have G, B, and D. And that's our G major. Now, if we go to C major, we're going to keep that G in the bass, and we're going to go G to C, a little bit wider stretch. Remember we were saying that about the width of these arpeggio shapes. There's a fair stint across the neck there that you have to develop. And when you're coming back through that arpeggio, it's going to be a little bit challenging too, because you're kind of got these two notes here between two strings. So we're going 12 to 13, reaching up to 17, pulling off. If you want to pull off, I included it as part of the run of how they're being, given in the handout. But that's that shape. So you're going to move forward and then move back out of it. So it's a little bit easier if you convert it to minor because you're not going to have that huge span that we have to get all the way to 17. Minor is going to drop out, and you're only at 16 now. So it's a little bit smaller run there. So go through those and start messing around with those. If you want to go back here to the G major that I was going through initially, if you just convert that to minor, you can drop the B down to B flat. You just have it on the 11th fret there now, and now you got minor. So really easy to mess around between minor and major. Even with these ones between third and second strings, converting it to minor makes a little bit easier shape out of it. But that's where you want to start. Working on these couple of shapes here that are going to be on the upper two string, or the upper four strings, I guess I should really say, because or three strings, pardon me, because we're working on third, second, and first strings. So you can convert them over into the other strings, but when you drop them down off of the fourth string or the fifth string or the sixth, actually what's happening there, I don't even have to show those to you, because those are going to be the exact same shapes that we were just going through on the higher strings. Remember when we were first doing strings 1 and 2, I'll go back to the very first arpeggio we did. That was that G major. And remember, it went 8 to 7 to 10. That was the G, B, D idea. Now if we go to the fourth string, we take those exact same notes. We're going to be a little bit lower down here, down an octave lower, but it's the same shape. The template of it is identical. So keep that in mind. If we do the other one, the one that we were working on for the C major, there's the G, there's the C, and then again, notice the wide interval. We're going a little bit higher there. We have to reach up to the 9th fret. It's a little bit wider reach. Just have to work on those a little bit. Of course, when you're getting down to some of these lower strings, maybe it's not the kind of sound that you really want to have in a lot of, composing ideas that you're working on. Maybe fifth string and sixth string is just getting too low in the mix. Maybe not, though. It depends what you're doing. If you're writing riffs instead of melodic statements, maybe the lower strings are going to be something cool that you can come up with down there and incorporate into a rhythm riff or something like that. So anyway, that's the first excursion through this material. I want to take a short break, come back in a moment. You can kind of digest this stuff here. I want to talk about one other concept with the shapes that you can deal with, and then we're going to get into a melodic statement after that. All right, so before we get into the world of playing some melody, I wanted to cover a little bit more in-depth look at the inversion process of two-string triad arpeggios, and this is really going to get involved with a lot of stretch and a lot of width to what's happening with these shapes. Now, before, we had taken a look at root position, and then we looked at doing a C major arpeggio with the fifth in the bass. But in the next example I have here, I want to run through C major arpeggio triad one more time, but we're going to lay the notes out between third and second guitar strings this time, coming from the third of the chord. So we're going to go from the E into the G, and then we're going to have the C, the root, as our final tone. Now, as you can tell, that's a pretty monstrous stretch. That's more than 2 whole steps. That's a couple of whole steps plus a half step. So it's really quite a reach on the fretboard. Now, how this thing works is we're just going to run through from third string, we'll have 9th fret. Crossing over to second string, we'll have 8th fret. And then 13th. And I'm still doing that pull-off idea that we had looked at before. And then come back round into that third chord tone, once again, the E at the 9th fret of third string. So there's the two-string arpeggio, the triad, based upon having the third in the bass. And of course, if you want to create minor, that's the third chord tone right there on third string there. So you drop it down a half step and you've got E flat. And now we've got our minor arpeggio. So work these out a little bit. It's just taking the third and putting it into the bass and messing around with some new shapes that are going along the neck. We are going to have that larger reach. In this case here, certainly you can tell it's a little bit of a monstrous stretch there to deal with. But organize this a little bit for yourself on the neck as well, because it's going to give you one more pattern to mess with. And, the more the merrier. You can have more ideas to mess around with. So we're going to take a short break, come back and check out a melody using a lot of these arpeggio concepts. And we're going to expand things a little bit as well. All right, so, it's one thing to just study shapes and practice playing them from a technical standpoint, but it's a whole other thing altogether to apply them musically. So what I've done is I've taken a group of these two-string triads and created a short melodic line with them. Now, this example that I have here uses a short chord progression that's just operating here in the key of C major. It's a pretty straightforward set of chords. It goes like this. That's a C to G to A minor. And then we're going to do C again to F to G. That's all the chord changes are. It's really straightforward. Okay, so that's all that there is to the background chord changes. But what we're going to do over top of that is we're going to apply a whole whack of arpeggio ideas out of this particular key center. Now the key center is C major, so that means we're going to stay diatonic. We're going to use nothing but diatonic arpeggio ideas from the key of C major. We're going to start off by doing a first and second string arpeggio idea in C major, going E to C to G. Then after that, we're going to do a G major, going D to B to G. Then we're going to do a D minor arpeggio between second and third strings. And then we're going to slide forward and give the impression of that C major sound. So the D minor is going A, F, D, and then the brief hint at C major goes E and G only. So it's lacking the root. There's no root there. And then the really cool part of it is at the end, we're going to be covering an extension built out of this. We're going to expand upon things, and we're going to be looking at the C, the root of the key, as a seventh chord. So we're going to have major 7 here. And what we're going to do to have some fun with that is we're going to do a slide back and forth real quick between B and C up at the 12th and 13th frets. And then we're going to head over to the G note, and then the E tone down off of the 3rd string at 9th fret. It's a cool sound. We're going to do all the way up to the high E here to wrap things up to bring us to a D tone, which is actually the 5th of our final chord, because there's a G chord at the end there, so the D is the 5th of that chord. So altogether, it sounds like this. You can tell that C major 7th at the end is kind of a really cool sound. I'm going to fire up the loop pedal, give you a chance to hear how this sounds with the chords in the background. All right, so you can tell, this two-string arpeggio layouts, they're a lot of fun. These melodic example that I've given you here is just a basic concept, and, you can definitely take this and incorporate it into many other ideas, expand upon it, change tonality, extend into 7th chords, do all that stuff. But, apply it, get the shapes down, get some technique happening with it, but put it to use, make melodies up. And, if you're not fantastic at improvising, then just compose, because really composing leads to improvising. All improvising is just spontaneous composition anyway. So get going on writing parts, coming up with lines with these two-string arpeggio concepts. I know there's quite a huge stretch on the technical side of it, but the more you do that, the more you'll get used to doing it, and you'll have better accuracy in the long term. So have fun with this stuff. It's a very cool sound. Well, one of the most common issues players tend to encounter on, guitar when they're learning their arpeggio patterns is how those arpeggios are generally given in the textbooks. The way those layouts are in the books can be difficult to apply. They're very in position, they're very vertical, and, to use arpeggios more effectively, we have to break them into smaller sections and have them working much more laterally along the neck, and then you're going to get some pretty cool ideas, especially when you can stack them and do a lot of along and across the neck work with them. Now these two string shapes can be fantastic for that. We can apply the arpeggios that were shown in this lesson into a lot of different situations and combine them across the whole neck, end up with some really cool ideas, really cool sounds that can be well learned and then translated transfer it to all kinds of different keys and just continuously expand it upon for if you're composing a melody or if you're, of course, improvising. It takes a little bit of time. It's not a ton of work, but once you get a few of them, well established on your guitar fretboard, you can expand from there, and then you'll obviously learn a few more. If you stay diatonic, you've got lots of arpeggios within a key center to apply and put into songs. And if you're unfamiliar with the music theory on that, as I'm always saying in these videos, you've got to study your theory. You got to understand at least the minimum. You got to know your scales, basics of arpeggios, and diatonic harmony. If you at least know that stuff, you're going to be able to do quite a bit. But you got to even expand from there to go onwards and get more and more information to really become a well-rounded player and be able to pretty much play on anything that you come across. So it's all work, but this kind of arpeggio idea that we went through in this lesson is a lot of fun, and you can apply it in a lot of different ways. So I think you'll have some good ideas that'll flow from it. Anyways, that's all the time that I have for today. As always, I want to say thanks for watching. Have fun working on all this information. Please subscribe to this channel, and if at all possible, if you can put a donation together for the channel, that would be fantastic. I'm trying to get a lot of new things going in over the summer months here, so finances are tight, and anything that you can offer towards the studio to build the business up a little bit bigger online, that would be fantastic. I want to have a more expanded website and really build upon that a lot more, and build out on the free membership side, and then eventually get into some different exclusive membership opportunities off of the website. So anything you can do to support the site would be fantastic, because this stuff costs tons of money to do this. So anyway, have yourself a really great week, and I will catch up with you next time. Bye for now. My Blues Guitar Styles ebook is a masterclass course covering a huge amount of information with 8, 12, and 16 bar blues progressions, classic blues styles, plus all the important chord patterns. There's over 50 pages of information, including sections on blues techniques like slide, alternate tuning, and bending. This ebook has everything the guitar player needs for a solid foundation in blues guitar, including 27 MP3 audio tracks for easy at-home study. Blues Guitar Styles is available for instant download in the View Our Products area at creativeguitarstudio.com.